The Nazi Road to the Brussels EU, Chapter 8, The Relay of Life. In the previous chapters of this book, we've shared with you our sobering analysis of the way in which the heirs and architects of Auschwitz are making yet another attempt at world conquest. Recognizing the dimension of deception and fraud that would allow those interests to even have a chance at this last attempt, it should teach a lesson to every reader. The only way in which the takeover of the world can be prevented now and in future generations is to immunize ourselves against the lies and deceptions that form the very basis of the modus operandi of these interests. More importantly, now that we've exposed the truth about the architects of Auschwitz, we consider it incumbent upon ourselves to propose the way ahead. This book does nothing less than rewrite the history of the 20th century. It therefore follows that plans for the 21st century have to be revised in order to take into account our new understanding of the past. The sobering analysis documented in this book now provides a unique opportunity to shape the future without repeating the mistakes of the past. Considering the magnitude of these mistakes, the steps to be taken now will have to be courageous, far-reaching, and global in nature. Moreover, the time to design the path to a better world is now. For if we do not draw accurate and immediate conclusions from the lessons of history, mankind will lose an important opportunity for recharting its course. In this chapter, we will outline actions necessary to create a world of health, peace, and social justice. This world is no longer an illusion. It can and must be built now. How soon this world becomes a reality depends upon one single factor: how many of us are prepared to commit ourselves to reaching this goal. This call to action is particularly directed towards the younger generation, for it's their world and their future that's being decided now. Mankind stands at a crossroads. The alternatives could not be more distinct. On one side are the economic interests that are benefiting from disease, misery, and the deaths of millions. On the other side are the people of the world, for whom there is no higher interest than the protection of their health and lives. The survivors of the Auschwitz concentration camps have recognized this defining moment in the history of mankind, with their call for a relay of life. As the few survivors left from the hell on earth of decades ago, they're passing on the moral obligation to all of mankind today. The relay of life is not just a moral obligation, but a call to action to protect life on earth in its broadest sense, and thereby creating the foundation for a better world. The goals. Mankind now has the opportunity to create a world of health, peace, and social justice, but this new world will not come about by itself. We, the people, will be required to construct it ourselves. This book lays the foundation for one of the largest movements in history of mankind, the movement of life. The purpose of this movement is to liberate mankind from the shackles of a century-long dependency upon the oil and drug cartel, and to protect human life for all future generations. For every movement, it is important to have clearly defined goals. The goals for the movement of life are the following: spreading the truth. It's now obvious that we, the people of the world, have been deceived with respect to such important questions as who was ultimately responsible for the largest crimes of the 20th century, the 6 million deaths of World War II. If the interests that have withheld this information from us for more than 7 decades still control public opinion today, we have to ask ourselves further important questions. 1. Why did they lie to us? And 2. If they lied to us about such important matters as these, why should we believe anything they tell us today? It's obvious that understanding and distributing the truth about history is the precondition for building a better world. Protecting health and life. The most important goal of the movement of life is the protection of the health and lives of the citizens of this planet, now and in all future generations, from being abused by or sacrificed to corporate interests. Outlawing patents on health and life. Mankind had to go through 2 world wars with over 100 million deaths to realize that the root cause behind each of them was the principle of patents. Thus, the key goal has to be to outlaw patents on health and life. A new healthcare system. Over the past century, pharmaceutical interests have tried to build a monopoly on world health based on 2 main elements: the exclusivity of patented drugs as therapies and the privatization of the healthcare sector under their control. It goes without saying that the precondition for a new healthcare system is the elimination of these 2 elements of control. As opposed to the existing healthcare system, which is based upon the promotion and expansion of diseases for patented drugs, the focus of the new healthcare system is the prevention and elimination of diseases. The first step in refocusing a new healthcare system towards these goals is the abolishing of all patents for therapeutic drugs and other medicines. The second step is bringing the healthcare sector under the control of the people. This is the only way to guarantee that medical research, education and practice serves exclusively the health interests of the people and not the financial interests behind the pharmaceutical industry. Protection of life. The genome of humans as the blueprint of the biological basis of life belongs to us all. Efforts to own this genetic code with the goal to rebuild, sell and manipulate the human body or parts of it for corporate gain should be prohibited. Protection of the food supply. The genetic information contained in animals, plants and the food that has been growing in our fields and gardens for millennia belongs to us all. Manipulating and altering the genetic code of life with the goal of patenting and creating global market monopolies bears the danger that our food supplies are controlled and used for political gain by corporate interests. Protecting the environment. Good health and the sustaining of life depend upon clean air, pure water, and the absence of toxic chemicals in the environment. Over the past century, carbon-derived pollution of the atmosphere originating from oil drilling and coal mining industries has become one of the major threats to our environment. Global warming and other consequences are also threatening the survival of our planet. In addition, conventional intensive agricultural techniques requiring the use of large quantities of toxic patented pesticides, herbicides and synthetic fertilizers have polluted our soil and water supplies, thereby threatening ecological balance and even life itself. In the 21st century, carbon-derived energies must be replaced by hydrogen-based solar, wind, tidal and other renewable forms of energy, thereby simultaneously protecting human life and the environment. Similarly, intensive agricultural techniques must be replaced by organic farming and other decentralized natural agricultural methods. Protecting world peace. The preservation of peace has been a dream for every generation throughout history. While most wars were regional disputes, the 20th century saw 2 wars that involved virtually the entire globe. The correct analysis of the causes of these 2 world wars is a precondition for the prevention of another global conflict. Since such a conflict will, no doubt, involve weapons of mass destruction, this very analysis also determines the survival of mankind. The facts documented in this book lead to only one conclusion: the termination of the principle of patentability of the sectors of health and life as the precondition for preserving world peace. In a similar way, the termination of the dependency of the world's energy demand upon oil will take away the profit incentive behind the military invasion of oil-rich regions. Consequently, the sooner the world's energy supply can be met by decentralized and renewable forms of energy, the less likely new wars will be to occur. Establishing social justice. The colonial empires of earlier centuries that divided the world into rich and poor have been replaced by the world's leading export nations of chemical, pharmaceutical and petrochemical products. The global interests of the oil and drug cartel not only cement the injustices on our planet, but further expand them with every passing day. Of all these new modern forms of economic dependency, by far the most heinous form is that of pharmaceutical colonialism. Behind the deceptive veils of charity and fighting epidemics, toxic and deadly drugs that decimate the population and aggravate economic dependency are being promoted across the developing world. In a similar way, the divide between rich and poor nations is further aggravated by promoting patented genetically modified seeds and foods to the developed world under the false pretext of fighting world hunger. The lessons from history are clear. As long as mankind allows the heirs of the Auschwitz architects to continue being the power brokers behind today's global economic order, there will be no social justice. The termination of the investment business with patented drugs and foods is a precondition for decreasing the gap between industrialized and developing countries and establishing social justice on a worldwide scale. The modern decentralized technologies in the fields of health, nutrition, energy and others are based on economic growth in the developing world and for decreasing dependencies. Moreover, the termination of tribute payments by developing nations to the oil and drug cartel will liberate vast amounts of economic resources in those countries that can be directed to meet the basic needs of the people, including food, health, education, and employment. We, the people, are the architects of this new world. At this very moment in history, we, the people, have two alternatives. First, we can allow corporate interests to continue cementing and expanding their monopoly over this planet in key areas of our lives. Or, we, the people, take responsibility to build this new world for ourselves and all future generations. If we leave this world to corporate interests, they will continue their business with poverty, hunger, environmental pollution, disease and death. Of course, maintaining this world and the economic benefits deriving from it can only be accomplished under a global dictatorship that allows these corporate interests to curtail civil rights and disregard the will of the people. If we, as the people, decide to take responsibility, we can take advantage of the most modern technologies, such as renewable energies and science-based natural health, and create a world of health, peace and social justice. The free exchange of information amongst the people and the huge amount of economic resources suddenly becoming available will enable mankind to take a quantum leap forward towards such a just world. The choice seems obvious. However, two aspects must be clear to everyone. First, we, the people, have to build this world ourselves, because it is us and our children who will have the greatest benefits from it. Second, we have to do it now. For every day that we wait to seize this opportunity, the status quo will attempt to cement its control over this planet. The next steps. Every reader and listener to this book, every recipient of this documentation who understands the urgency of now, should take immediate actions to start building this better world. Following are some of the most urgent tasks that need to be undertaken. Think for yourself. When you reflect on the contents of this book and carry out your own research, you'll realize to what extent you've been deceived and cheated from gaining a proper understanding of history, including your own past. In particular, you have to develop a critical attitude toward the media because it serves the status quo and thereby contributes to the global deception. Disseminate the information contained in this book. This book contains unique information, documentation, and analysis that you'll not find anywhere else. We've tried to substantiate as much as we can from official records, including material long hidden in governmental and international archives. We encourage you to study all of the links in the online version of this book and to conduct your own research. We encourage you to forward the online version of this book to everyone you know and to include a personal comment regarding what you've learned. Contact your political representatives. Do not assume that your political representatives are aware of the facts contained in this book. While some of them have been brought to power by these interests, many others have simply been victimized, as indeed all of us have been. Those in the latter group deserve a chance to prove that they really represent your interests. Send a copy of this book to your political representative. Ask your politicians whether they are aware of the historical facts contained in this book. Their answers may surprise you. Organize to spread the message of this book. The best way we can make sure this book reaches the farthest corners of your village, town, city or country is by forming a group with other readers who share your determination to act. The first task of such a group, of course, is to develop ways to distribute this book in your community and to make sure that literally everybody reads it. As a result of carrying out this task, many other activities can be developed. Seek out and work with like-minded people. There are many possibilities and many areas where you can become active and involved in campaigning. They include protection of the environment, alternative energy, science-based natural health, organic gardening, microfinancing and alternative economies. Any other areas whereby the hold that corporate interests have over our planet can be reduced. Vote with your pocket. Be as careful in choosing where and upon what you spend your money as you are in choosing which politicians to vote for. Where and upon what you spend your money on really does change the world. For example, by buying organic produce, you're casting a vote against the chemical industry's business with pesticides. By buying an energy-efficient car, you're casting a vote against the petrochemicals industry and pollution. By choosing science-based natural health for yourself and your family, you're casting a vote against the pharmaceutical business with disease and its monopoly on health. A platform for a better world. The documentation and analysis contained in this book forms the launching pad upon which mankind can build a better world. Already, more than 24 survivors of these concentration camps gathered in the city of Auschwitz to present a new constitution to the governments of Europe. This constitution, for the people, by the people, outlined the necessity to safeguard the interests of the people against corporate greed. Unfortunately, this historic call, presented as a relay of life by a group of people with the highest moral authority on this planet, was ignored by the political leaders of Europe. To the contrary, by signing the Lisbon Enabling Act, these short-sighted politicians gave the green light to a process that would hand over the entire European continent to the very same corporate interests that have already been responsible for 2 world wars. In this situation, we, the authors of this book, have decided to include this call in this book and spread it as a political platform and precondition to preserve democracy for this and future generations. In the following pages, we document the historic call for a relay of life toward the building of a Europe, and ultimately a world, for the people and by the people. As opposed to many national and regional political platforms, this international call can be carried by an overwhelming support from the people of the world, because it carries unprecedented credibility and authority. The moral weight of the survivors of the worst crimes committed against mankind, combined with the correct analysis of the causes of 2 world wars.